Everybody's always in a good mood, and that first day, all smiles, is day one, spring training in Phoenix, Arizona. That's some good news with Brandon Woodruff. He dispels some reports out there. All that and more from day one of the Brewers at spring training. That's coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We had a few bits of news come out of opening day at spring training, day one down there. A couple of players have reported early and all that, but pitchers and catchers were due to report today, and we'll get to all that, including some news on Brandon Woodruff. Very nice guy, by the way. I've said that before here, but we'll talk about what he had to say coming up here about coming back from the surgery that he had in 2023. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Great to have you along for my third season of doing this, and a proud host of Locked On Brewers, my favorite sports team here in the state of Wisconsin. Cover them on a regular basis, and very fortunate to do so. Been doing it for a long, long time, and great to have you with me. And we'll tell you about the different avenues you can get on Locked On Brewers, and of course, follow me on Twitter as well, Chuck Freeman at Chuck Freeman. But the news of the day so far, right off the top, Brandon Woodruff got there, reported there. He says he's able to put on a uniform, unlike last year, because he had the surgery in October 2023. He had the surgery. And last year he said spring training wasn't able to put on a uniform at all, but now he has. And he says, fellas, the guys who went by his locker, the media that's down there, said, fellas, I got to dispel these reports. Now, he's a very, very nice guy. It wasn't he did it in a derogatory term or anything like that, or wasn't condescending, or anything. Woodruff's not that way. He said, I have to dispel these reports. I am healthy. There's reports out there that I'm not 100%. No, now, he wouldn't say if he's 100% or not, but he said he's healthy. He can do a lot of different things. He's going to be throwing to live hitting coming up on Friday. He's going to throw about 20 pitches to live hitting. And that's going to be for the first time since 2023 that he's going to be able to do that. So that's great. And he's going to test it out on Friday, and we'll try to we're going to get to that. Hopefully that that live hitting is done earlier today, so we could have something for our afternoon podcast on Friday. But Woodruff says, hey, I need to come out there and tell you that I have had no setbacks. There's reports out there I've had setbacks. I have had none. And Woodruff, from covering him over the years, and he's been here since, 2018, I can tell you the guy is pretty upfront, pretty honest. He's one of the more upfront, honest, likable guys you're ever going to run into. And I know sometimes that's overused, but he is. And I believe when he says this. Sometimes these guys will come out and give you a load of, BS, but not Woodruff. He said, no, I have not had any setbacks at all. I'm looking forward to pitches and facing hitters on Friday for a first time. And he dispelled all those reports. Now, the Brewers last year did sign him 2 years, $17 million, knowing that 2024, they were basically using money to help him on his rehab, knowing that $17 million basically meant that he was going to get ready for 2025. Now, he was asked by Adam McCalvy of Brewers.com, from watching the video today, he was asked by Adam McCalvy if there's any timetable for you to pitch. Have you set a timetable? And he said, not really. He said, of course, you always, in the back of your mind, this is paraphrasing here, always in the back of your mind have a certain date set and all that. Didn't reveal it. But he said, I don't really have a timetable. I haven't set a certain date that I'm going to pitch in. Now, the belief is that he's probably not going to be ready for opening day, which is fine. And we don't know what his velo is going to. He doesn't have any idea what his velocity is going to be and how hard he's going to be able to throw coming up on Friday. He's coming off the surgery, which is a year and a half ago almost. And but he says he is healthy and he's looking forward to throwing, but no timetable. So that's the good news with Brandon Woodruff. Other news and notes today. Pat Murphy. I listed a couple of things on the podcast yesterday of things I wanted to know. Day one. I'm waiting to get any answers on a couple of those things I mentioned. But he did say that Freddie Peralta Run with it, he says. Run with it. Freddie Peralta will be our opening day starter. And there was no surprise. There's no competition. There's no secret. Sometimes Craig in the past had to keep a secret. Oh, who's going to be my number one starter? Is it going to be Woodruff or Corbin Burns? Who's going to be the guy? And, the media kept on saying, hey, have you figured out who your number one starter is going to be yet? Who's going to be your opening day starter? And Craig said, well, no, we'll talk more about that later in the week. Pat Murphy just said he doesn't care. He's another nonsense guy. Murphy said, Dad, it's going to be Freddie. Go run with it. He said, run with it. It's going to be Freddie Peralta. And really, who else was it going to be? All right. Wasn't going to be Woodruff. Wasn't going to be Myers or anybody else. Freddie started game one of the playoffs. Going to be the opening day starter for the Milwaukee Brewers when they take on the Yankees coming up. I believe it's March 27th at Yankee Stadium. In fact, the Brewers open up on a Thursday in New York, and then they have Friday off in case Thursday's a rain date, just like last year. And then they'll play Saturday and Sunday in New York, and then come back to AmFam Field on Monday. So the big news of the day, two big notes. There's a couple other interesting facts that happened today. But Woodruff, talking in front of his locker, says, hey, no setbacks. I'm still right on track to where I want to be. And then Pat Murphy says, run with it. That Freddie Peralta, who was 11-9 last year, will be his opening day starter. We're going to get some YouTube comments. Some of you guys had some things to say about Devin Williams. Yesterday's podcast, I talked about Devin Williams and having to fill his hole as the closer. Who's going to be the next man up? And I said, Trevor McGill. Some of you guys out there, man, you are harsh on Devin Williams. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Chuck Freeman, good to have you along here on Locked On Brewers. And great to have aboard Wonderful Pistachios as one. I love pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios as one of our sponsors. I love to put pistachios. I mix them in with strawberries, pistachios, into low-fat yogurt. And after I'm done working out, I always put the pistachios in. And Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts out there. Each 1 ounce serving has about 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Really, really good. Plus, they're packed with fiber, better for you, unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. You need your unsaturated fats in your body. You do. You can't go completely fat-free if you're trying to lose weight, and this is a great way to go. So if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, try Wonderful Pistachios. And you'll crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. I try them. Again, I put them in my yogurt and put some strawberries in there after I get done working out. Man, I'm telling you, it's filling too. Pistachios are filling. They pack a punch. Get snacking and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com and learn more. Wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more and get them right there. But as I tell you, man, pistachios is a great way to go. Great, healthy way to go. Complete in protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids and no shells. Wonderful Pistachios for that grab and go ease, satisfying crack of opening each shell. It's like a snack meditation. So head on over. You like pistachios like I do, and they're wonderful. If you ever tried it before, get aboard. Wonderful Pistachios. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. You get our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. We are there 5 days a week. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Training camp is underway, and we're back to daily again. You know, it took about a month off there, month and a half off. We were doing about 3 shows a week in December and January, but we're back at it again. Camps are open, and it's time to get down to business here and directing our team to another divisional title. And to make the playoffs, what is it, 7 of the last 8 years making the playoffs? I don't count 2020, though. I don't count that. That was a short series. They lost to the Dodgers. Nobody was in the ballpark. And as I said about 2020, if fans aren't in the ballpark, that doesn't count for me. YouTube comments. Devin Williams, although in 2020, Devin Williams arrived on the scene in 2020 and was terrific. I think that was probably the best part of 2020 was what Devin Williams did. So on my podcast yesterday, who is going to pick up and be the outgetter that Devin Williams was? I see a lot of pushback from Brewers fans out there, almost like a good riddance, forgetting what good that Devin Williams did on this team. Man, he was great. But I think that just goes with the trade right there as being a closer. We heard it with Devin Williams, heard it with Josh Hader, heard it with Dan Plesac back in the day, and all the other relievers, closers the Brewers have had. Mike Fetters, you name it. You name it. I mean, you go right down the list of all the Brewers closers. Some were here for a short time. Some were here for a long time. But Devin Williams here since 2020. And we know how that ended for the Brewers, trading him to the Yankees. And a lot of you are disenchanted with Williams because of the way the season ended, him giving up the 3-run blast to Alonso. Here are some of the things you had to say. Eric says this. He says, I'm interested to see where Yoho fits into this equation throughout the year. I am too. We'll see. I think Yoho's going to get a shot. We'll see if he makes the team. I think he'll be up on this roster during this season, but I think there's just so many arms in that bullpen right now. I don't see where Yoho fits in. There's so many guys ahead of him in line right now. I don't know if Yoho quite fits in to making the opening day roster. Dave says, the thing with Williams and Hader is the Brewers organization should have been able to obtain more in compensation for each. Well, I agree on that. I totally agree on that. That's a real problem with moving both players. That being said, the Brewers organization has always been able to develop a closer or acquire a closer cheap. It's probably the only thing the Brewers have done consistently from the 90s on till today. No, you're right about that. That's right. The Brewers have always, one thing they've been able to do is find themselves a closer for the most part. And back when the Brewers were bad in the 90s, mid-90s, they didn't really need a closer. I mean, they had Mike Fetters there for a while, but late 90s, early 2000s, did they really even need a closer? Because bad teams really don't need one. Dave says McGill can be the guy that they got for scraps, and he closes and is successful for a couple of years and then traded before they got him. Well, yeah, they got him from the Twins. The Twins didn't want him, and they picked him up off the scrap heap. McGill was fantastic last year, says Dave. The setup man is, and the bridge to the setup man is up for grabs right now. Hall and Mizrowski are also candidates to be one of those spots as a, and I assume he's talking about as a setup man, if they don't work out in the rotation. DeYoung does not suit me. Okay, well, I think DeYoung is, one of the last options out there available on the table, who's still on the market. Dan says, Williams, an all-star closer who labored through the one inning he pitched every other day at best when not hurt. It did sure seem like Williams would always get himself in those jams, man. Last year especially, man, he got himself in the jams, but he always seemed to work himself out of it. I think there was a game at Pittsburgh when he didn't, but an all-star closer without question. Yeah, he had a tendency to, get in those jams and then get himself right out of them, although it didn't happen against the Mets when we needed it the most. Mike says, don't forget who's in AAA waiting to come up. That's Mizrowski. I'm sure he's referring to there. And Yoho, too. Devin Williams, according to Andy, seems to have a chip on his shoulder, especially in his first couple of years with the Brewers. I'm okay with him moving on. I think the team is better without him in the closer's role moving forward. I don't think that, I disagree with you, Andy. The Brewers are not better losing Devin Williams in that closer spot. Now, they were never going to pay him $18 million a year or whatever he's going to get in the future, but they are not better without him. I can tell you that. You're kidding yourself if you think the Brewers are better without Devin Williams. Again, I think what you're looking at there is the Alonso home run, and that's the last impression of him. Farrow says, Williams is overrated and in decline. Really just living off one good pitch, which was well marketed with a good nickname. Talking about the airbender there is Farrow. No, Williams is not overrated. If you don't like Devin Williams, give me 5 closers who you like better than him in Major League Baseball. We could talk about that. So Devin Williams is very good in his time here. Very good. So that's it. The reaction on the negative side for Devin Williams as he is out the door in New York. And as fate will probably have it, we'll probably see him on opening day trying to close out a game against the Milwaukee Brewers. We come back. We'll talk about some other things that happened on day one, spring training. Bleacher Report came out with its list of ranking all the owners. Where does our owner fit in with the Milwaukee Brewers? Mark Attanasio. They came out with their Hot 100 list as well. A couple of Brewers there. And the Brewers did make an acquisition. They signed somebody. Maybe not an area of need, but they signed somebody. We'll get to all that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. All right, rolling on opening day. And as fate would have it, on opening day of pitchers and catchers reporting in Arizona, where it's about 60 degrees, we got the biggest snowstorm of the year of this winter. Hasn't snowed all winter in Wisconsin. We've had snow showers, but no accumulation. We haven't had accumulation in a long time. But schools are called off. I got to shovel the driveway. Not looking forward to that tonight. And the biggest snow day of the year just so happens coincides with the Brewers opening up with pitchers and catchers reporting. Bleacher Report says Mark Attanasio, of the baseball owners out there, 32 owners, where does he rank? Bleacher Report's got him 12th. Now, Brewer fan might not rate him that high, but they considered all the factors, and the Brewers have been, let's face it, they've owned the NL Central playoffs in, 6 of the last 7 years. Mark Attanasio, the 12th best owner in baseball, according to Bleacher Report. Interesting. And I know Brewer fan might not give him such a high ranking, especially some of the tweets I saw the other day, Mark Attanasio, when I was talking about ownership of the Brewers and the salary cap and all that. MLB Network, great. I mean, they do a lot of terrific stuff. MLB Network, just a lot of terrific stuff. You know, they hate the Milwaukee Brewers, but still they do a lot of terrific stuff. When I say they hate the Milwaukee Brewers, I feel like they're always forced to cover the Milwaukee Brewers. They'll talk for 15 seconds and then go back to the Dodgers. Oh, Jackson Chourio, he's great. Oh, what about the Yankees? That's kind of all networks, but Major League Network, MLB Network tends to do that. So Harold Reynolds will be talking about having one of his researchers. Oh, yeah, let's find some stuff on the Milwaukee Brewers because we don't watch them really around here. And let's get back to the Dodgers where we all watch. But MLB Network did mention a couple of Brewers in their top 100. They have 2 in the top 30, 2 players. Will Contreras moved up substantially. He was 81st in the 100 last year. He's now 28th on that list. 28th, and got him as for a nice price here for the next couple of years. But Contreras, and rightfully so, 28th. You could argue whether he or Chourio are the best player on this team right now, but Contreras is the veteran. He's 28th right now on this list. Jackson Chourio, 1 year in the majors. He's already in the Hot 100. He is at number 40. I can pretty much guarantee you he won't be at 40 very long. In fact, Jackson Chourio was probably one of the top 10 players in baseball last year in the home stretch, coming up all the clutch hits and all that. I'm not saying for the whole body of work for the whole season, but I'm saying in September and maybe even in October, he was kind of Mr. October for the Brewers. No offense, Reggie Jackson, but he was kind of he had some big hits in October. But Jackson Chourio was probably one of the top 10 baseball players in MLB, I want to say for September and October. But going into the season, MLB Network has him 40th, one behind Mike Trout. It's a pretty good company to be in. Trout, the injury history and all that, so he has slipped, and he was one of the best players in baseball at one point. But Jackson Chourio, 1 year, he's already ranked 40th. Probably if he was the Yankees, he'd probably be in the top 20. But he's the Brewers. He's 40th, but still, that's still pretty good. What else did we saw? Oh, Jonathan Lucroy, who's been very active on Twitter as of late, tweeted out a picture of him in a Cubs jersey. You almost forget that he's in the Cubs. And then he tweeted out a picture of him in a Cubs jersey and then said, "Don't worry, Brewers fans, you're still my favorite." So, but he said there in that picture with the Cubs that he loved playing there. And I get it too, playing at Wrigley Field. It's like if somebody was a lifelong Chicago Bear and they played for the Packers in Lambeau Field, they would say, "God, yeah, playing at Lambeau Field, historic Lambeau Field." And fans, you could say, well, you want about the Cubs, and I dislike the Cubs as much as the next guy, but playing for the historic Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field, I think if you're in the moment, if you're playing for them, it's got to be pretty special. You know, they've had a long line of losing, and they won the title in 2016 and all that. I get it, but I'm not going to come at Lucroy just because he said he loved playing with the Cubs. And he's on the Wall of Fame, I believe, with the Milwaukee Brewers, and loved player with the team. And he was great when he was here, terrific. And he was on our radio show weekly, and Jonathan was fantastic in that area. But I'm not going to crush Jonathan Lucroy because he said he loved playing in Chicago. Again, that's a big stage right there. Just like I refuse to blame Craig Counsell for going to the Cubs. Colin Ray also with the Cubs, kind of flown under the radar a little bit. I saw him interviewed on the Marquee Network the other day in the locker room wearing a Cubs jersey. It just looked different. This guy's been with the Brewers the last couple. Not like he was a lifelong Brewer, but he's with the Brewers last couple of years, and now to see him in a Cubs jersey. But hey, that's business. That is business. You gotta go where the money is. Don't blame him at all. So, but it just looked kind of odd to see Colin Ray in a Cubs jersey in the locker room. The Brewers did make it a transaction. I think they were the only team in baseball, other than maybe Miami, who did not sign a free agent in the offseason. I guess this counts. Tyler Alexander, a 1-year major league contract they signed him for. 30-year-old lefty, 6-year veteran. Spent most of his career of those 6 years with Detroit. Played at Tampa last year, an ERA in the mid-5s. Hard thrower. Can make some spot starts for you. Can also relieve. I don't know why they're going out and getting themselves another reliever. That was a little baffling that the Brewers signed another reliever. We just talk about the crowded bullpen. I don't know. But maybe they know something about DL Hall. Now, DL Hall was some news today as well. Late breaking news with DL Hall that DL Hall has got a lat pull and he is going to miss 2 weeks of spring training. That's some other news that was reported today. DL Hall, a lat pull. They say he'll miss 2 weeks. DL Hall, a lefty. Tyler Alexander, a lefty. We'll see. And they put Alexander on the 40-man to clear a spot for Alexander on the 40-man. They moved Robert Gasser, who's having the Tommy John, who had the Tommy John surgery. They moved him to the 60-day injured list. And that's that for there. So, DL Hall, lat pull out for 2 weeks. Tyler Alexander, another lefty they brought in, signed him to the major league contract. And that's pretty much it for day one of spring training. Murphy didn't answer any questions really regarding a third base spot. Hopefully we'll know more. But the news with Woodruff is good news that he says he's on course for no setbacks, on course, ready to pitch on Friday. His first pitching to live hitting since 2023. So that's really good news. Hey, everybody. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day. I really appreciate it. We drop these during the off season here. We drop these during prime time at night most of the time for your viewing around at night. Here we are in February, not much to do in the state of Wisconsin, at least. So we drop these at night, and then the audio, we try to drop that overnight. So it's in your mailbox in the morning. And we drop it on the audio version of this on Google, Spotify, Apple, all the audio platforms. All you got to do is look for Locked On Brewers. And of course, go to our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell that alerts you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. For your second listen, go to my guy Sully, Locked On MLB. He's got all the spring training news each and every day. Locked On MLB. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Day 2 of pitchers and catchers reporting. We'll see if a few of the other players start trickling in, and whatever news happens tomorrow, we'll have it for you tomorrow night right here on Locked On Brewers. My name is Chuck Freeman. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.